Well, for those of you who don't know, I'm visiting or whatever else it might be today, I have just come back from being in the UK. 5 days in London and around London, and then 5 days, well, nearly 5 days in the very north of Ireland, the Antrim Coast Road, the Giant's Causeway, that area. If you've ever heard of it, that's where I was. And so I've just come back. So my accent is still leveling down a wee bit. So it still hasn't found its equilibrium in Canada. But I know from what Raymond has told me that I was talking much too fast and much too broadly when I first arrived home. But anyway, now, because I've only just got back, I got back on Friday, I haven't been able to keep track of all of the news that's been going on in Canada, and I don't know what's been tracking in the UK has been tracking in Canada in the same way. So I'm just going to check to see if there's nods in the room for this. Was there much about the King's speech to Congress? Yeah. All right. That was wall to wall for days in the UK, like 4 days. And then the other one that is more recent, and just before I left, what the news about Golders Green and the attack on Jewish people in Golders Green in North London, was that mentioned at all? So I say that because there's the last couple of days in the UK, there's this very real sense that something has now kind of like flipped. And now people who identify in the Jewish faith and tradition, whether by belief or practice or how they live, are feeling excluded and feeling under threat and attacked. So in the UK now, it is quite normal, has been for years, that there is security paid for security around schools and places of worship. So if you're a Jewish school or a synagogue or anything like that, you've been having security for years now. And the very real questions that are being asked, because this event of Golders Green is a well-known area where 50% of the population are Jewish, but also in Manchester, another large Jewish community, Heaton, I've forgotten the name of it, but they had an attack on their synagogue last year, and that killed people. This one was stabbings, but that one actually killed people. And they are just feeling that on the streets these days, people are just being like shouted at. Young children going to school are being like just objects of vitriol and anger and all the rest of it. And so they are feeling very much excluded, like being pushed out. The very real questions they're asking is, can we live here, or do we need to leave here? And those are the questions that they're wrestling with. And the King Charles speech, you don't need to be a monarchist or not. That doesn't matter. But I think most people have thought that was a well-crafted speech that was well delivered. And it may or may not have gone over the head of certain individuals, but I'm not going into that. But those are sorts of things that were kind of mentioned. So it's just to have a test for some of the stuff I might talk about later on. So when I picked up the hire car a few days ago in Northern Ireland, from Belfast, where I flew into, I drove home to the family farm, but on the way I stopped at our family church. And it's in the middle of nowhere. It's a farming church. And the associations of my family go back at least 180 years with that church. And so all of my Cochrane forebears are buried there for that 180 years. And it's tied to us in all sorts of ways. The person who kind of spearheaded moving the church to its current place is a guy called John Alexander Cochrane. And my father was the guy who led the renovation of the whole facility and added on a big extension to the hall. His name is John Alexander Cochrane. You probably get the vibe. You know, it's going down there. Now, my brother is an elder of that church. Now, that all sounds lovely, as lovely sunny day, and I drive up and I notice that there's another car there in the car park, and this is on a day when there shouldn't be anybody there. Anyway, I drove up because I wanted to go and see my mum's funeral, gravestone, and then also I wanted to go and see my Auntie Margaret. For those of you who will remember, she died last year, and she's now buried in the graveyard of my grandparents, and so her name has been added to their gravestone. So I wanted just to spend some time there, because that's new, and I hadn't seen that yet. So I get there, but there's this car, and suddenly a whole wash of emotions came up that I didn't know I had. And they all stem from, if I speak to that person, they'll know who I am, because that's just farming community. But they'll also know who I am. And I just didn't want to go there, quite honestly. I haven't got the bandwidth for it. I'm just not really interested. The name of the minister is on this freestanding kind of like sign. And that minister is a famous homophobe. Like he goes to the pride parades to shout at the people taking part in the parade. He is the person who stands on a Wednesday outside the abortion clinic to make women feel worse than they already do. It's that kind of vibe with it. So everything about this is kind of like, but I wanted to go, but it's still my family church, even though I've not been able to set foot inside it for a long time. And so, but the graveyard is still the graveyard. So I was there and I was thinking, am I going to have to speak to this person? They're going to know who I am. Am I going to be judged? Am I going to be spoken at badly? Am I going to be told that I am the devil incarnate and all the rest of it? All of these different emotions that I didn't really know were there, they all raced up at the same time, and it's like it kind of like threw me because of all of that. Have you ever had that experience where you've gone home, whatever that might be for you, and it's just brought back a whole bunch of conflicted emotions? Glad to be there. Where I come from is very beautiful. If you follow my social media, you will see that it's very beautiful. I've taken lots of pictures and video and put it online, but it's also a hard place to grow up. And people are all saying, oh, it must have been lovely to grow up there. Yes. No. And so that's kind of how it was. And at the heart of it all is, do I belong or do I not? Am I seen or am I rejected? And the fear that rose within me was that I was rejected. I didn't speak to the person, I just couldn't do it. So I just stayed well away from them. This week, we've had all sorts of contrasts. We've talked about the King's speech and the events in Golders Green as well. I listened to some of the interviews by school children and how they are victimized. These are 8, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds going to school who are being shouted at and who are being kind of lumped in with all the actions that are going on with the Netanyahu government. But that must be separated from the Jewish people, because there's many people, even in Israel, who do not agree with the actions of the Netanyahu, the government. Netanyahu, I'll give up. And so they are being lumped together in the most perverse way. And they're being made to feel it when it's no fault of their own, but simply because of the faith that they practice. It's hard, isn't it? But that's the truth. And so we may well have been in some other places where we have felt something similar, where your identity felt like a liability, where you wondered, is there room for me? Now, it could be your ethnicity, it could be your language, it could be your social class, it could be your economic status, your immigration status, it could be your sexuality, your gender, goodness me, it could be so many things. Because in the course of humanity, we find lots of things by which we can other people, haven't we? And that, I think, is at the heart of some of what we're going to look at today. And so, looking at our gospel reading. Now, this is something which many of you will have heard in funerals. And maybe some of you have also rankled a bit, if you're honest, or you know people who have rankled with this. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again. And I will take you to myself, so that where I am, you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going. Familiar to you? Yeah, you're all familiar with that. Good. Does it leave you a little bit, or you're happy and reassured by it? It's okay. All right, grand. That's okay. As long as it's okay, that's great. So Thomas then says, Lord, and I think this is kind of how he would have said it, Lord, We do not know where you are going, and how can we know the way? You know, it's that kind of way. And Jesus said to him, and this is the one I think can be quite troubling, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, I think that's the one that gets weaponized. I think that's the one where people go, am I in or am I out? Are my loved ones in or are they out? You know, is that fair? You know, it's that kind of vibe that quite often can take place. So for many people in this room and also online, you may well feel that that rankles somewhat. And I don't blame you for that, because it has been weaponized in ways I think are the antithesis of what Jesus intended. And I want to show you why. Picture the room, the upper room now. So we've got oil lamps going. There's a nice light. It's very, what do the Danish say these days? Hygge? You know, it's that very comforting, cozy thing. There's a smell of fresh bread in the air. You know, that's that smell of fresh bread when you're really hungry and you go past and you go, ooh, that's really nice, and you feel really hungry. Or is that just me? You know? If there's bread in the air, or croissant, the smell of croissant is another one, isn't it? Anyway, I digress. The sound of Judas's footsteps have gone down because this is Thursday night. This is the Last Supper. And in that Thursday night, the last meal that Jesus will share with his friends before his arrest, he's just washed their feet, and that was a shocking and humiliating act for a teacher. He's told them that one of them will betray them. Judas has already left. And then Jesus turns to Peter and says, before the rooster crows, you will deny me, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Okay, so everybody who's sitting in there is thinking to myself, right, okay, so we've had Jesus washing feet. We've had, he's telling us that somebody's going to betray him. Judas is already gone. Is it him? And then Jesus says to Peter that you're going to betray me 3 times. Okay, what are they feeling right now? Confused? Stressed, anxious, probably a lot of those emotions, don't you think? So feeling all of those different emotions. So this room is reeling. And then to cap it off, we now get Jesus does his loving pastoral line. I'm leaving and you can't come with me now. That's it, you know? And so you can feel that the panic is now reeling. Okay, they're thinking, okay, we can deal with this because Jesus is here. And then suddenly he said, so I'm going and you're not going to find me. And it's like, oh no, or words to that equivalent. I'm in a church, I won't go any further. But I suspect they were saying something else under their breath. Can you feel that panic rising? It's bad. Jesus already said a bunch of bad stuff. And then he's saying, oh, by the way, I'm going and you can't follow me. I think there's a bit of stress in the room. Everything is falling apart. Their teacher, the one that had given up everything to follow, is about to be ripped away from them. And they had no idea what comes next. How many of us have struggled with not knowing what comes next with all sorts of things? And the panic can rise. So Jesus then says, do not let your hearts be troubled. Well, that's a bit like saying that if you're in the storm, don't worry about the waves. It's nice to say in theory, but in reality, it's not so easy. Is that fair? And so that, I think, is what's going on here. And then he tells them about the Father's house, the many rooms, and how he's going to go and prepare a place for them. And Thomas, bless him, you know, the doubting Thomas that always gets slagged off, he just says, he blurts out, Lord, we don't know where you're going. How can we know the way? That's not a theological question. That's a panic reaction. And that's fair, I think. So how do we do this without you? How do we find our way with you gone? What are we supposed to do? And into that fear, Jesus says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, let's just check to see what actually is being said here. First, location. Jesus is not speaking on the edge of a community looking outwards, drawing a line in the sand, metaphorically speaking, and saying that, that he's not making a universal pronouncement about all religions for all time. He's not saying, everyone who doesn't believe in me is damned. That's not what this scene is about. That's not what's happening here, which is why I wanted to tackle it today. He's standing in the middle of his terrified friends who know him. That's important, right? And who are worried because he's now saying he's going. And so he's facing inward, not outward. He's answering a specific question from a specific people, a group of people. How do we find our way when you're gone? And then we look at the grammar. Sorry about this. There's a wee bit of grammar here. I wouldn't want you to know that I wouldn't want to pretend that I'm more intelligent than I am, but this is what I've discovered in researching for this sermon, just to be clear about that. The Greek sentence structure is, I am the way and the truth and the life, but the way is the primary claim. The truth and the life are just simply kind of like add-on qualifiers, if I can say it like. So it's about the way. And that's why, remember that Jesus' followers, before they were called Christians, were called followers of the way. Oh, well done, well done. That was a better response than I was expecting. So followers of the way, and you can see why it's here. So it's not three separate things, the truth, the life, and the way. It's I am the way, which happens to be truthful and leads to life. Do you get that? So it's a way which is true and truthful, and also the way to life. That is what is being said here. It's not giving the same weight to every one of those three pieces. It's way, and then it leads to life, and it is a truthful way. Different way of looking at it. Make sense? Okay. I don't believe that one, but never mind. So you don't need a map. You just need me. That's what he's saying to his friends who know him, right? Who he is in relationship with. And so when he says in the second half, no one comes to the Father except through me, this is the bit that's been turned into an exclusionary weapon. But the context, this is not to outsiders. It's a promise to anxious insiders. Jesus is saying to his disciples, for you, right here, right now, this is how you know God, through me. And do you remember Philip's comment, my namesake? Philip said, well, show us the Father and we will be satisfied. And Jesus basically says, dude, you've been with me all this time. You do know the Father. That's the underlying thing here. So Jesus is saying, for you right now, you will know God through me. You don't need anything else. You don't need a secret knowledge. You don't need to pass a test. I am all you need. It's assurance. It's not an exclusion. Does that make sense? That's really important. This is not about excluding people. It's assuring people who already know him. That's what's being said here. This is pastoral care, not doctrine or in comparative religions or something like that. That's not what's going on here. So what is Jesus saying? He's saying, you're afraid. I think you're going to be lost when I'm gone, but you won't be. Sorry, you think you're going to be lost. He doesn't think that. You think you're going to be lost when I'm gone, but you won't be because I'm not showing you, because I'm not just showing you the way. I am the way. You're connected to the Father through me. That connection doesn't break when I leave, which is so important for us to hear, that connection doesn't break when Jesus leaves. It's relational, not transactional. It's about trust, not answers. It's about who Jesus is, not about who's excluded. And I wonder if that changes how all of this sounds. I am the way is not I am the gatekeeper, but I am the road itself. I am the truth is not the exam that you have to pass, but the person you follow. I am the life is not the rule book, but a relationship. And I don't know about you, but did any of you belong to churches where you had to memorize stuff? And you had to memorize membership stuff? Did you do a catechism, perhaps? I did the Westminster Catechism of Faith. And you had to learn it all. And it's like, the chief end of man was to glorify God and enjoy him forever. Him being the operative kind of like pronoun. Anyway, I'm traumatizing myself again. Okay, so, but here it's not about that. It's about relationship. It's not about what you say you believe. Even the creeds are not things that will necessarily get, that's not what this is about. Relationship with God is what it's about through Jesus. So here's what this means for us. If you've been told that this verse is about who's in and who's out, about drawing lines and policing boundaries, which I have heard a lot of in recent weeks from down south, that's not what this text is doing. It shows a lack of biblical awareness. or not using the scriptural authority correctly. The text is gathering frightened people together in a room and saying, don't let your hearts be troubled. There are many rooms, and I'm preparing a place for you. This is about dwelling places, by the way. We don't know. It's not like some sort of real estate kind of, mansion or something like that. We're not talking about whether your room's going to be in beige or gold or green or whatever it's going to be. And we're hoping it's not going to be any of the people involved in the redesign of the White House. There are many rooms, maybe even a ballroom. I don't know. It doesn't say anything about ballrooms. But I'm preparing a place for you. And you don't need to figure out how to get there because I am all you need. Trust me. Sometimes we're in our heads too much and we simply overcomplicate things. Oh, I'm on my own. Okay. And so to bring this together, we have all the other readings do the same thing in different ways. We have Stephen, the first Christian martyr, facing execution by stoning. And what does he see? He sees heaven opened. But the thing that is unusual here, and I want to draw your attention to it, is Jesus isn't seated at this point. He is standing by the right-hand side of the Father, tick, that's what we expect, but he was supposed to be sitting on the seat of authority, and he's not. He's standing up. And I'm going to push a boat out here. I'm going to say I think he was standing up to receive Stephen. He didn't want to remain seated. He wanted to gather up Stephen. And so the vision that he got was of a Jesus coming to receive him, not seated in splendor, in distance, but actually in relationship. So I think that relationship thing is what's seen here. Stephen is facing possibly the worst moment of his life, and the heavens open and Jesus stands up. Will I be seen or will I be judged? He is seen and he is welcomed. And then Psalm 31, into your hand I commit my spirit. It's the prayer you pray when you're not sure that there's room for you, when you're standing at the door not knowing if it will open. And Jesus said the same on the cross, and so did Stephen at the moment of his death. Into your hand I commit my spirit. The psalmist said it in the middle of fear and uncertainty. My times are in your hand. And here's the thing, that prayer has never been refused. Not when Jesus prayed it, not when Stephen prayed it, not when the psalmist prayed it, not once ever. And then Peter, writing to communities of displaced people who felt they didn't belong, resident aliens, people who are wondering if they could belong. And he says to them, you are living stones. And he says that Jesus was the one who is also an outsider, but has now become the capstone. And you are being built into it as living stones. The people who've been discarded are the very ones who are being built into the house of God. Yay! Yay! Okay, not kept out, but built in. Not rejected, not tolerated, but chosen. All three readings, Stephen, the Psalm, Peter, answer the same question. Will I be seen or will I be judged? And the answer is, you are seen. Heaven is open. Jesus stands and you are chosen. So let me come back to where I started. This week we saw a couple of versions of truth-telling. King Charles, in his oh-so-self-deprecating and winsome way, was landing some home truths to certain individuals. Moral clarity held with, I would say, grace. Golders Green and the events of anti-Semitism that we've heard about show the horror of boundary policing, identity as a weapon, collective blame. As I stood at my mother's grave and wondered, will I be seen or will I be judged? I think that's the question that many of us do carry. Not just when we go back to old places, but in the rooms we enter every day. The Jewish congregant watching anti-Semitism spike. The person who left evangelicalism and still flinches at, I am the way. The Iranian-Canadian family carrying anxiety about all that's going on in the Middle East, or indeed those who have family and friends in Israel or any other of those parts of the community. The digital worshiper, tuning in from a place where you can't safely attend church in person. All of us, in different ways, asking, is there room for me? And here's what the gospel says this morning. You are seen. Heaven is open. Jesus stands to receive you. There are many rooms in the Father's house. Not because you've earned it, not because you showed up every Sunday, although I do expect you to show up every Sunday, or said the creed without crossing your fingers, I don't judge, but because God makes space. Jesus is not the wall, but the way. And the way leads home. Our hearts are restless until our hearts find home in you. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. So there are many rooms. Jesus is the way that opens, not the way that closes. You are seen, you are welcome, you belong. Come home. Amen.